The fluorescent lights of Romano's Bistro cast harsh shadows across the black and white tile floor as Elena Vasquez wiped down her last table of the night. Her feet screamed in protest, the cheap shoes she'd bought at a discount store 3 months ago finally giving up their fight against 12-hour shifts. The clock on the wall read 11:43 p.m., and she still had to pick up her daughter from Mrs. Chen's apartment before midnight, or the elderly woman would start worrying. Table 7 left you a decent tip, called Marcus, the night manager, from behind the bar. $20, not bad for a Tuesday. Elena pocketed the crumpled bills with a tired smile. $20. Combined with her other tips tonight, she had maybe $63. The electric bill was due tomorrow, $127. Her daughter Sophia's asthma medication needed refilling, $45 with the discount card. And rent. God. Rent was already 5 days late, and Mr. Patterson had stopped being understanding about 2 months ago. The math never worked. No matter how many shifts she picked up, how many extra hours she begged for, the numbers never added up to enough. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Elena finished her closing duties with mechanical efficiency, her mind already calculating. She could ask Marcus for an advance on Friday's paycheck. Maybe pick up that weekend catering gig even though it meant leaving Sophia with Mrs. Chen for 16 hours straight. Maybe the kitchen door swung open, and Marco, the head chef, stuck his head out. "Elena, we got a late arrival. VIP section. Sorry." Her heart sank. The VIP section meant the private dining room upstairs, the one reserved for Romano's Bistro's most exclusive clientele. The kind of people who stayed until 2 a.m., ordered bottles of wine that cost more than her monthly rent, and expected impeccable service. "How many?" she asked, grabbing a clean apron. "Just one, but he's—" Marco paused, choosing his words carefully. "He's important. Owner's orders. Give him whatever he wants." Elena climbed the stairs to the second floor, her tired legs protesting each step. The VIP dining room was elegant in a way that made her acutely aware of her stained uniform and the hole in her left shoe. Crystal chandeliers, mahogany paneling, artwork that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. And sitting alone at a table by the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline like he owned every building in view, was the most intimidating man Elena had ever seen. He was maybe 35, wearing a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been sculpted onto his body. Dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and controlled power. Even sitting still, he radiated authority, the kind that made people instinctively step aside or bow their heads. But it was his eyes that caught her, dark, intelligent, and currently fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath hitch. "Good evening," Elena said, forcing her voice to remain steady and professional. "Welcome to Romano's. Can I start you with something to drink?" "McAllen, 25. Neat." His voice was deep, with the barest hint of an accent she couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, or Spanish. Elena nodded and retreated to the bar, her heart pounding for reasons she couldn't explain. She'd served plenty of wealthy customers before, plenty of men who looked at her like she was part of the decor. But this felt different. When his eyes had met hers, it wasn't dismissive or predatory. It was assessing, like he was reading a book written in her face. She returned with the whiskey, $200 per glass, she knew from the menu, and set it carefully in front of him. "Have you eaten?" he asked, not looking at the menu. "I what?" "You. Have you eaten tonight?" Now he did look at her, and Elena felt pinned by that gaze like a butterfly on a collector's board. "I'm fine, thank you. Are you ready to order? Or would you like a few?" "Sit down." The command was soft but absolute. Elena glanced toward the stairs, toward safety and normalcy and the rules she understood. Customers didn't ask servers to sit. Servers didn't sit with customers. This wasn't how things worked. "I really should. Sit. Down." This time there was steel beneath the velvet. "Please." The please made it somehow more compelling than threatening. Against every instinct and regulation, Elena pulled out the chair across from him and sat, her hands folded in her lap like a child called to the principal's office. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena Vasquez." "Elena." The way he said it made her name sound different. Important. "I'm Dante Romano." The name hit her like a physical blow. Romano. As in Romano's Bistro. As in the Romano family, which everyone in Chicago knew, controlled half the city's reign. She stood abruptly, the chair scraping, against hardwood. "I should get your order." "I own this restaurant, Elena." along with 15 others across the city. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. I think I can bend my own rules about servers sitting with customers. Why? The question came out more forcefully than she intended. Because I've been watching you all evening. Elena's stomach dropped. I'm not like that. Now definite amusement colored his tone. I arrived 2 hours ago. I sat at the bar downstairs, where you didn't notice me because you were too busy taking care of every customer like they were the most important person in the room. He leaned back, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. I watched you handle a drunk businessman who grabbed your wrist. You smiled, diffused the situation, got him water and called him a cab, turned a potential scene into a non-event. That's just my job. I watched you give your dinner break to that new server, what's his name? James? Because he looked overwhelmed. You ate crackers from your apron pocket instead. Heat rose in Elena's cheeks. He needed the help. I watched you count your tips 3 times, your face getting sadder with each count. Then I watched you give $5 to the dishwasher who mentioned his daughter's birthday tomorrow. How do you... I notice things, Elena. It's how I've survived in a world that doesn't forgive inattention. Dante set down his glass. And what I noticed tonight is that you're drowning, working yourself to death and still going under. Elena's hands clenched in her lap. I'm managing fine. You're managing poverty with dignity. There's a difference. He pulled out his wallet, extracting a crisp $100 bill. For your service tonight. Exceptional service. Elena stared at the money. $100. Combined with her tips, that was enough for the electric bill and Sophia's medicine. Maybe even a small payment to Mr. Patterson to buy another week. But something in Dante Romano's eyes told her that taking this money would mean something, would change something fundamental that she couldn't undo. I can't accept that, she said quietly. Why not? Because this isn't a tip. Tips are for service rendered. This is, she searched for the word. This is something else. What if I told you it was payment for your honesty, for treating every customer tonight with the same care, whether they tipped well or poorly? For being the kind of person who gives away money she desperately needs because someone else needs it slightly more? Then I'd say you're mistaking basic human decency for something extraordinary. Dante's smile was slow and genuine. In my world, Elena, basic human decency is extinct. You're the first person I've met in a decade who operates on principles instead of profit. He stood, leaving the $100 bill on the table, and Elena's willpower crumbled. She needed that money so badly. Her hands shook. Sophia needed her medication. The lights needed to stay on. But when she looked at Dante Romano, at the way he watched her with those dark, knowing eyes, she understood instinctively that taking his money would mean stepping into a world she didn't understand. Would mean owing something to a man whose very name made people speak in whispers. I can't, she repeated, standing to face him. Thank you, but I can't. Dante studied her for a long moment, something shifting behind his carefully controlled expression. Then he did something that shocked her. He laughed. Really laughed, deep and genuine and full of surprised delight. Remarkable, he murmured. Absolutely remarkable. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, holding it between 2 fingers like a peace offering. Then work for me instead. I already work here. For you, apparently. Not as a server. As... He paused, considering. An advisor. I don't know anything about running restaurants. I have plenty of people who know about restaurants. What I need is someone who understands people. Someone who can read a room, diffuse tension, see the truth beneath the surface. Dante moved closer, and Elena caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker, more primal. Someone honest enough to refuse $100 she desperately needs because she won't be bought. You don't know me. I know enough. You're a single mother. I noticed the crayon marks on your apron pocket and the way you checked your phone 17 times tonight. You're supporting someone on your own, probably a young child based on the dinosaur stickers I saw when your phone screen lit up. You're behind on bills but still helping others. You're exhausted but still smiling. You're drowning but refusing to drag anyone else under with you. Each observation hit Elena like a revelation. This man had seen her, really seen her, in ways nobody had in years. What would this job entail? She heard herself ask. Attending business dinners? Observing interactions? Telling me what you see, what you sense, what your instincts say about people. Dante's voice was smooth, persuasive. I'll pay you what you make in a month here for one evening's work. Full benefits including healthcare coverage for you and your daughter. That's insane. Nobody pays that much for what? Reading people's minds? I do. When the information is valuable enough. He set the business card on the table beside the rejected $100 bill. Think about it. Call me when you decide. Dante headed for the stairs, then paused. Elena? Yes? Your daughter. Sophia, I believe? The casual mention of her daughter's name should have terrified Elena. Instead, it felt like acknowledgement, like he'd done his homework because he was serious. Her asthma medication. There's a better version available, but it's not covered by standard insurance. The kind of coverage I provide would include it. Then, he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the stairs, leaving Elena alone with a $100 bill she wouldn't take, and a business card that represented everything she'd worked to avoid: charity, dependence, debt to powerful men. But also, medicine for Sophia, bills paid on time, maybe even sleep, that elusive luxury she'd almost forgotten. Elena picked up the business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, Dante Romano, CEO, Romano Enterprises. A phone number, nothing else. She left the $100 bill on the table, grabbed her worn jacket, and headed downstairs. Marcus was cashing out the register, and the kitchen staff was cleaning up. Mr. Romano leave? Marcus asked, not looking up. Yes. Good tipper? Elena thought about the money lying untouched upstairs. Very generous. She collected her things and stepped out into the October night, Chicago's wind cutting through her thin jacket. The walk to Mrs. Chen's apartment was 6 blocks, and Elena's feet ached with each step. But her mind was elsewhere, replaying every word of her conversation with Dante Romano, the way he'd watched her, the way he'd known about Sophia, the way he'd offered her a job that made no logical sense but somehow felt inevitable. Mrs. Chen answered on the first knock, her weathered face creasing with concern. Elena, dear, you look exhausted. Long shift. How was she? Perfect, as always. Did her homework, ate her dinner, took her medicine before bed. Mrs. Chen hesitated. The inhaler's almost empty, though. I know. I'm refilling it tomorrow. Elena gathered her sleeping daughter carefully, Sophia's slight weight familiar in her arms. 7 years old, dark curls splayed across Elena's shoulder, breathing with that slight wheeze that never quite went away. This was what mattered. This small person, who depended on her completely. This was why she worked 14-hour days, why she smiled through harassment and exhaustion, why she counted pennies and skipped meals. Back in their tiny studio apartment, Elena laid Sophia in their shared bed and sat at the kitchen table, really just a folding card table with 2 mismatched chairs, and stared at Dante Romano's business card. Better insurance, better medication, bills paid, maybe even savings. That mythical concept she'd heard about but never experienced. All she had to do was step into a world she'd spent her entire life avoiding. Trust a man whose family name carried weight and danger in equal measure. Believe that his offer was genuine and not some elaborate trap. Elena thought about the way Dante had looked at her. Not with pity or condescension, but with something like recognition, like he'd been searching for something rare and finally found it. She thought about Sophia's wheeze, getting worse each winter, about the electricity bill and the rent and the endless calculations that never balanced. She thought about the $100 bill she'd left behind and what it cost her to walk away from that. Money. Then she picked up her phone and dialed before she could talk herself out of it. He answered on the second ring. Elena, not a question. He'd been expecting her call. The job, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I want specifics. Real specifics. What exactly would I be doing? Smart. Ask the hard questions first. She could hear the approval in his tone. I own businesses across Chicago. Restaurants, construction companies, real estate developments. Some of my associates are trustworthy, many are not. I need someone who can attend meetings, dinners, negotiations, and tell me who's lying. You want a human lie detector. I want someone whose instincts I can trust. Someone who hasn't been corrupted by this world yet. Dante paused. Someone who would refuse $100 on principle. And if I'm wrong? If my instincts are wrong? Then you're wrong. I'm not asking for perfection, Elena. I'm asking for honesty. Can you give me that? She looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully, her small chest rising and falling with each labored breath. Yes, Elena whispered. I can give you that. Good. I'll send a car tomorrow at 6 p.m. We have a business dinner. Wear something elegant, I'll have options sent to your apartment by noon. How do you know where I… She stopped. Of course he knew. Dante Romano made it his business to know things. Elena? Yes? You won't regret this. I take care of the people who are loyal to me. The line went dead. Elena sat in the darkness of her apartment, listening to her daughter breathe and wondering if she'd just made the best decision of her life or signed away her soul. Outside, a black sedan sat 3 cars down from her building, engine idling. In the driver's seat, Vincent Marcello lowered his phone and spoke into his earpiece. She's in, boss. Good. Dante's voice crackled through. Double security on her building. I want someone watching her daughter's school. And Vincent? Yes, sir. She doesn't know what world she just stepped into. Make sure nothing touches her until she's ready. Vincent glanced up at the window where a single light glowed. The woman standing there, silhouetted against the warm illumination, had no idea that her simple act of refusing money had set off a chain of events that would change everything. She didn't know that Dante Romano never made offers without deeper motives. She didn't know that his world was about to collide with hers in ways that would test everything she believed about right and wrong, safety and danger, fear, and something that looked dangerously close to love. All she knew was that tomorrow, her life would change. And in the darkness of Chicago's underworld, powerful men were about to discover that the woman who'd rejected their boss's money was about to become the most dangerous piece on the board. The dress arrived at exactly noon, delivered by a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an Italian accent so thick Elena could barely understand her. I am Lucia, she announced, sweeping into the studio apartment with 3 garment bags and a makeup case that probably cost more than Elena's security deposit. Mr. Romano, he sent me to make you beautiful. Not that you need much help, Cara. You have good bones. Elena stood frozen in her waitress uniform. She'd picked up a lunch shift at a different restaurant, desperate to squeeze every dollar from her final week of normal life. Sophia sat cross-legged on the bed, eyes wide with wonder as Lucia spread the contents of the garment bags across every available surface. I don't understand, Elena said. He just said elegant. This is Mr. Romano knowing you would choose the cheapest option and look uncomfortable all evening. Lucia held up a midnight blue dress that shimmered like water. He knows women, that one. Knows when they need help but are too proud to ask. The dress was perfect. Understated elegance. Nothing flashy or inappropriate, but clearly expensive. The kind of thing Elena would have walked past in a store window, without even considering it might be meant for someone like her. There are 2 others, Lucia said, gesturing to the remaining bags. In case this one doesn't fit or you prefer different color. Mr. Romano, he wants you comfortable, confident. Sophia climbed off the bed, approaching the dresses with reverent hands. Mommy, it's like a princess dress. Try on, Lucia commanded, already assessing Elena's figure with a professional eye. Then we do hair, makeup. Not too much, Mr. Romano was very specific. Natural, elegant, like you just happened to be this beautiful. 2 hours later, Elena barely recognized herself in the cracked bathroom mirror. The dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves without being suggestive. Lucia had done her makeup with a light hand, just enough to enhance without transforming. Her dark hair was swept into a simple updo that looked effortless, but probably required skills Elena would never master. Perfetto, Lucia declared, standing back to admire her work. She pressed a small evening clutch into Elena's hands. Your phone, lipstick, nothing else. And these… She held up a pair of diamond stud earrings that caught the afternoon light like captured stars. On loan from Mr. Romano's collection. You return them after, yes? Elena's hands trembled as she put them on. These are real diamonds. Of course real. Mr. Romano? He doesn't do fake. Lucia's expression softened. You are nervous, Cara. This is good. Means you are smart. But you don't need to fear him. He is. Complicated man. Dangerous, yes, but not to you. Never to you. How do you know? Because I have worked for Romano family for 30 years. I dress his mother, God rest her soul. I dress his sisters, his cousins, the women he dates. Lucia cupped Elena's face gently, and never, not once, has he called me himself to prepare someone. Always he sends assistant, gives orders through. Vincent. But you? He called me personally. Told me to make sure you feel beautiful, not dressed up. Comfortable, not costume. She stepped back, gathering her supplies. That tells me everything. You are not like the others. You are important. After Lucia left, Elena sat on the edge of the bed with Sophia, trying to explain what was about to happen without really understanding it herself. Mommy has a new job, she said carefully. I'm going to help a man with his business. Tonight is my first night working. The man who owns the restaurant? Sophia was 7 but frighteningly perceptive. Yes, baby. How did you, Mrs. Chen said a fancy man came to pick you up last night after I fell asleep. She said he looked like a movie star but scary. Sophia's dark eyes, so much like her father's. The father who died when she was 2 studied Elena seriously. Are you scared, Mommy? Elena could have lied. Should have lied. But she'd raised Sophia on honesty, on the principle that truth, even difficult truth, was better than comfortable deception. A little, she admitted, but also excited. This job means better insurance for your medicine. It means we can pay rent on time. Maybe even get you those art supplies you wanted. I don't need art supplies if it makes you scared. Elena pulled her daughter close, breathing in the strawberry shampoo scent of her hair. Sometimes doing scary things is how we take care of the people we love. The car arrived at exactly 6 p.m. Not a limousine, which Elena had half expected, but a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. The driver was the same thick-set man she'd seen briefly at the restaurant Vincent. She remembered Dante calling him. He opened the door with professional courtesy, but his eyes scanned the street with the alertness of a soldier in hostile territory. Miss Vasquez, you look very nice. Thank you. Elena slid into the back seat, and Vincent closed the door with a soft click that sounded oddly final. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Dante sat on the far side, and when Elena turned to look at him, her breath caught. If he'd been intimidating in a business suit, he was devastating in a tuxedo. The formal wear should have made him look civilized, refined. Instead, it only emphasized the predator, beneath the polish, the sharp lines of his face, the controlled power in his posture, the dark eyes that missed nothing. Elena. His voice was warm, approving. You look beautiful. Heat rose in her cheeks. Lucia was very thorough. She's the best. And the dress? Perfect. Almost like it was made for me. It was. At her surprised look, Dante's smile was slight but genuine. I'm very good at estimating measurements. Comes from years of reading people. The car pulled into traffic, and Elena watched Chicago slide past the tinted windows. She'd lived here her entire life but rarely saw this version of the city. The gleaming towers, the expensive restaurants, the world that existed behind velvet ropes and private elevators. Where are we going? She asked. The Pinnacle Club. Private membership. Top floor of the Harris Building. Tonight, I'm meeting with 3 business associates about a construction contract. Dante shifted slightly to face her, and Elena was acutely aware of how small the back seat suddenly felt. What I need from you is simple. Watch them. Listen not just to what they say, but how they say it. Tell me who's lying, who's nervous, who's hiding something. That's not simple at all. For most people, no. For you? He tilted his head, studying her. I think you'll find it's instinctive. You've been reading people your entire life. Drunk customers, aggressive managers, men who cross lines. You just haven't been paid to do it professionally. And if I'm wrong, then you're wrong. Elena, I'm not asking for guarantees. I'm asking for your honest impression. That's all. The Pinnacle Club was everything Elena had imagined and nothing she'd been prepared for. The elevator required a key card to access the top floor. The doors opened onto a space that was more art gallery than restaurant soaring ceilings, modern sculptures, floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a view of Chicago that made the city look like a jewel box. A hostess in elegant black appeared immediately. Mr. Romano, your usual table is ready. Dante's hand settled on the small of Elena's back, proprietary and warm through the thin fabric of her dress. He guided her through the dining room, and Elena felt every eye turn to follow them. Conversations paused. People stared. She'd thought it was because Dante Romano commanded attention wherever he went. But then she caught sight of herself in a mirrored column and understood they looked like a couple. A powerful man and the elegant woman on his arm. From the outside, she belonged here. The thought was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Their table was in a private corner with a perfect view of both the entrance and the city beyond. 3 men were already seated, rising as Dante and Elena approached. Gentlemen, Dante said smoothly, thank you for meeting me. This is Elena Vasquez, my new consultant. The first man was in his 60s, silver-haired with a face like weathered granite. Anthony Castellano. Pleasure. His handshake was firm, testing, and his eyes raked over Elena with barely concealed curiosity. The second was younger, maybe 40, with nervous energy and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Robert Chen. Good to meet you. The third was closest to Dante's age, handsome in an aggressive way, with perfectly styled hair and a suit that screamed new money. Marcus Sullivan. Always interesting to see what Romano brings to the table. The insult was subtle but unmistakable. Elena felt Dante's hand tighten almost imperceptibly on her back before he smiled a dangerous expression that made her stomach flutter. Elena brings perspective I value, Dante said, pulling out her chair with old-world courtesy. Shall we order? Dinner was an education in power dynamics. The conversation flowed easily on the surface, construction timelines, material costs, permit delays, but underneath, Elena sensed currents of tension, rivalry, and carefully concealed hostility. Anthony Castellano spoke like a man used to being obeyed, his words carrying the weight of decades in Chicago's business world. But he kept glancing at Dante with something that looked like wariness, as if reassessing a threat he'd underestimated. Robert Chen was eager to please, laughing too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, agreeing too quickly with every suggestion. But his hands trembled slightly when he reached for his wine glass, and sweat beaded at his temples despite the perfectly climate-controlled room. Marcus Sullivan was openly antagonistic, challenging Dante's proposals with thinly veiled aggression. He kept trying to catch Elena's eye, his smile predatory, as if her presence at the table was some kind of invitation. Elena remained quiet, sipping her water. She'd refused the wine, wanting her mind clear and observing. Dante had been right. Reading these men wasn't difficult. They wore their true intentions like poorly fitting masks. The Harbor Development Project, Dante said, cutting into his steak with precise movements. I'm proposing Romano Enterprises takes lead on the residential towers. Castellano Construction handles the commercial spaces. Chen Development manages the permit process, and Sullivan Properties oversees the retail component. Generous of you to include us, Marcus said, his tone suggesting it was anything but, especially given Romano Enterprises' recent restructuring. The word hung in the air like a threat. Elena watched Dante's expression remain perfectly calm, but she noticed the slight tightening around his eyes, the way his jaw clenched for just a fraction of a second. The restructuring was necessary, Dante replied smoothly, focusing on legitimate operations, transparent accounting, sustainable business practices, the future of real estate development in Chicago. The boring future, Marcus laughed. Come on, Romano. We all know how business really works in this city. Permits get expedited. Inspections get overlooked. Union issues get resolved quietly. You're talking about playing by rules that no one else follows. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. I'm talking about building something that lasts. Dante's voice carried quiet steel. Something that doesn't collapse the moment federal investigators start asking questions. The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. Robert Chen's nervous laughter died. Anthony Castellano's expression hardened. Marcus Sullivan leaned back in his chair, his smile turning cruel. Is that a threat? Romano? It's a business philosophy. Dante's dark eyes fixed on Marcus with unwavering intensity. One that served me well. But if any of you are uncomfortable with transparent operations, legitimate accounting, and playing by the actual rules, now's the time to walk away. No hard feelings. The silence stretched. Elena could feel the violence simmering beneath the surface, the way these men communicated in glances and body language rather than words. This wasn't just a business dinner. This was a test, a challenge, a drawing of lines in sand that had already been crossed. I'm in, Anthony said finally, his voice carrying the weight of decision. Been thinking about going legitimate for years. My son's pushing for it, says the old ways are dying. Maybe Romano's right. Maybe it's time. Robert Chen nodded frantically. Yes, absolutely. Clean business, transparent operations. That's the future. All eyes turned to Marcus Sullivan. He stared at Dante with undisguised contempt. Then, his gaze slid to Elena, and she felt ice form in her stomach at what she saw there. I'll think about it, Marcus said finally. Need to review the numbers, talk to my partners. You understand. Of course. Dante signaled for the check with a subtle gesture. Take your time, but I'll need an answer by Friday. The permits are time-sensitive. The dinner concluded with handshakes and false pleasantries. As they waited for the elevator, Marcus stepped close to Elena while Dante was speaking to Anthony. You're very quiet, Marcus murmured, his breath hot on her neck. Pretty thing like you, I'd have thought Romano would want you contributing to conversation, unless your talents lie elsewhere. Elena turned to face him, keeping her expression neutral despite the rage bubbling in her chest. My talents lie in observation, Mr. Sullivan, and right now, I'm observing that you're the kind of man who mistakes intimidation for power and cruelty for strength. Marcus's smile faltered. Before he could respond, Dante's hand settled on Elena's shoulder, and she felt the tension radiating from him like heat. Elena, the car's ready. His voice was pleasant, but his eyes promised Marcus Sullivan violence in very specific detail. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. In the elevator, descending toward street level, Dante stood perfectly still, but Elena could sense the fury contained beneath his calm exterior. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I shouldn't have. You should have done exactly what you did. Dante's voice was soft, dangerous. No one speaks to you that way, ever. The elevator doors opened, and Vincent was waiting, his expression tight with concern. Sir, we should… I know. Dante's hand found Elena's back again, guiding her toward the car with quick efficiency. Move. They were barely in the sedan when Vincent hit the gas, pulling into traffic with aggressive precision. Elena twisted in her seat, looking back at the building. What's happening? Marcus. Sullivan made a mistake tonight, Dante said, pulling out his phone and typing rapidly. He showed his hand, and now he knows you saw it. Saw what? I don't… He's working with the Moretti family. Dante's eyes met hers, and Elena saw something ancient and cold in their depths. They're the ones who've been fighting my transition to legitimate business. They want Romano Enterprises back under the old rules: corruption, violence, shared criminal enterprise. Marcus was supposed to be feeling me out tonight, seeing if I'd revert to the old ways. But I ruined that by… You ruined nothing. You confirmed what I suspected. Dante reached across the seat and took her hand, his grip warm and surprisingly gentle. But now Marcus knows I have someone who can read him. That makes you a liability to their plans. Which means… Vincent spoke into his earpiece, his voice urgent. Copy that. Increase to 6 men. Full perimeter. No one gets within 2 blocks. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. My daughter, Sophia, is perfectly safe, Dante assured her. I had security on your building from the moment you accepted my offer. Mrs. Chen's apartment is being watched. Sophia's school will have discreet protection starting tomorrow. Vincent? Already arranged, boss. Full detail, rotating shifts. Elena tried to process what she was hearing. You're saying my 7-year-old daughter needs bodyguards because I went to a business dinner? I'm saying your daughter needs protection because you work for me now, and people who work for me become targets for my enemies. Dante's expression softened slightly. This is what I meant when I said you don't know what world you stepped into. This isn't just restaurants and real estate, Elena. This is Chicago's power structure, and changing it means threatening people who've built empires on corruption. The car pulled up in front of Elena's building, and she saw what Dante meant. 2 men in dark suits stood casually near the entrance, too casual, too alert. Another sat in a parked car across the street. The homeless man on the corner, she suddenly realized, probably wasn't homeless at all. Come on, Dante said, opening his door. I'll walk you up. You don't have to. Yes, I do. The building's security was a joke, a broken intercom, and a door that didn't lock properly. Dante's expression darkened as they climbed the 3 flights to Elena's floor. You can't stay here, he said flatly. This is my home. This is a security nightmare. No doorman, no cameras, an entrance a child could breach. Dante stopped at her door, his face set with determination. I have a property in Lincoln Park. Secure building, 24-hour security, fully furnished. You and Sophia can move in tomorrow. I'm not moving into your property, Elena. No. She unlocked her door with shaking hands. I agreed to work for you, not to become your kept woman. I have a home. It might not be fancy, but it's mine, and I'm not giving it up because some businessman got offended at dinner. Dante stepped closer, close enough that Elena could feel the heat radiating from him, could smell his cologne mixed with something darker, gun oil, she realized with a shock. He was armed. This isn't about keeping you, he said, his voice low and intense. This is about keeping you alive. Marcus Sullivan doesn't make idle threats. The Moretti family doesn't forgive interference. You became a target the moment you sat at that table, and I will not let anything happen to you because of a choice I offered you. Then maybe this was a mistake. Elena's voice cracked. Maybe I should quit, walk away, go back to my old life. It's too late for that. Dante's hand came up, his fingers gently tilting her chin so she had to meet his eyes. They know your name now. They know you work for me. Walking away won't erase that knowledge. It'll just leave you unprotected. Tears burned behind Elena's eyes, frustration, fear, anger at herself, for being naive enough to think a simple job offer was ever simple. What do you want from me? She whispered. Trust. Dante's thumb brushed across her cheek, the gesture surprisingly tender for a man she knew was capable of violence. Trust that I'll protect you. Trust that I won't let anyone hurt you or Sophia. Trust that this world I've pulled you into, as dangerous as it is, you won't face it alone. The door behind them opened, and Mrs. Chen appeared, her elderly face creased with concern. Elena, I heard voices. Is everything... She stopped, seeing Dante, and her expression shifted to something between wariness and recognition. Mr. Romano, she said carefully, I didn't expect to see you here. Mrs. Chen? Dante's voice was respectful, and Elena noticed how he immediately stepped back, giving the older woman space. I apologize for the late disturbance. I was ensuring Elena got home safely. With an army outside our building? Mrs. Chen's eyes were sharp despite her age. I may be old, Mr. Romano, but I'm not blind. I know who you are, what you are, and now you've involved Elena in your business. Yes, ma'am, I have. Then you better protect her properly. That girl and her daughter, they're good people, deserve better than to be caught in whatever war you're fighting. Something flickered across Dante's face. Respect, maybe, or acknowledgement of a truth he couldn't deny. They do deserve better, he agreed quietly, which is why I'm going to make sure nothing touches them. You have my word, Mrs. Chen. Both of them are under my protection now. Mrs. Chen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Your word better be worth something, young man, because if anything happens to Elena or little Sophia, you'll answer to more than just your enemies. You'll answer to every grandmother in this building. We're tougher than we look. Despite everything, Elena felt a smile tug at her lips. Dante's expression was solemn, but she caught the glimmer of amusement in the place. His eyes. I don't doubt it, ma'am. Mrs. Chen retreated into her apartment, leaving Elena and Dante alone in the dimly lit hallway. The weight of the evening settled over them, the danger, the attraction neither wanted to acknowledge, the fundamental shift in Elena's life that could never be undone. Stay here tonight, Dante said finally. My men will watch the building. Tomorrow we'll discuss more permanent security arrangements, ones that don't require you to give up your home. And Marcus Sullivan? Dante's smile was cold and precise. Let me worry about Marcus Sullivan. He started toward the stairs, then paused and turned back. Elena, you did perfectly tonight. Exactly what I needed. You saw the truth beneath the performance, and you called it out when it mattered. That's rare. That's valuable. Is it valuable enough to justify putting Sophia in danger? Nothing is valuable enough for that. Dante's voice was fierce. But I promise you, on everything I am, your daughter, Aang will never be touched by this world. She'll stay safe, stay innocent, stay exactly who she is. That's non-negotiable. Then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the stairwell, leaving Elena alone with the growing realization that Dante Romano was far more complicated than she'd imagined. He was dangerous, absolutely. Ruthless, certainly. But he was also a man trying to change, to build something better, and somehow Elena had become essential to that transformation. Inside her apartment, Sophia slept peacefully, unaware that outside their building, an invisible army kept watch. Unaware that her mother had just stepped fully into a world where business dinners could become death sentences, where a single evening could change everything. Elena changed out of her beautiful dress, carefully removing the diamond earrings that weren't hers, and climbed into bed beside her daughter. Tomorrow, she'd figure out how to navigate this new reality. Tonight, she'd just hold Sophia close and pretend the world was still safe. 3 blocks away, in the back of his sedan, Dante Romano made a phone call that would ensure Elena's safety and Marcus Sullivan's regret. Vincent, he said quietly, I want a full workup on Sullivan's operations. Every business deal, every partner, every transaction. And find out exactly how deep his connection to the Moretti family goes. Planning to hit them, boss? Planning to bury them. Dante looked out at the Chicago skyline, at the city he'd spent 15 years conquering through fear and violence. The old way would have been bodies and fire. But Elena's right, there's a better way. We destroy Marcus Sullivan legally, expose his corruption, dismantle his operations piece by piece, and leave him with nothing but the knowledge that crossing me was the worst mistake of his life. And if legal doesn't work? Dante's expression went cold. Then we remind everyone in this city why the Romano name still means fear. Elena woke to her phone, buzzing at 6:47 a.m. An unknown number, but somehow she knew who it was before she answered. Don't go to work today. Dante's voice was calm but carried an undertone of steel. Stay home with Sophia. My men are outside if you need anything. What happened? Marcus Sullivan's warehouse in Bridgeport burned down last night. No casualties, but a clear message. The Moretti family is moving faster than I anticipated. Elena sat up carefully, trying not to wake Sophia. You think they'll come after me? I think they're testing boundaries, seeing how far they can push before I retaliate. A pause. Are you scared? Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you careful. His voice softened slightly. But I meant what I said last night. Nothing will touch you or Sophia. I have 20 men in a 4-block radius of your apartment. Vincent is personally overseeing your building. You're safer than you've ever been. Dante, I'll call you later. Don't leave the apartment unless Vincent clears it first. The line went dead. Elena looked out her window at the street below and noticed what she'd missed in last night's darkness. 2 new cars parked strategically at either end of the block. A man in a coffee shop across the street who'd been reading the same newspaper for too long. Another maintenance worker, whose van hadn't moved all morning. Her quiet life had become a military operation. Sophia emerged from behind their room divider, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Mommy, why aren't you at work? Day off, baby. I thought we could stay home together. Maybe make pancakes? But as Elena mixed batter and tried to maintain normalcy, her phone kept buzzing. Text messages from Dante's number, each one a small piece of his world intruding on hers. Vincent will bring lunch. Italian from Giordano's. What does Sophia like? Security detail at her school approved by the principal. They'll maintain distance, but she'll be watched. Found Marcus Sullivan's connection to the Morettis. It's deeper than I thought. Meeting with my lawyers this afternoon. And then, an hour later, how are you holding up? Elena stared at that last message for a long time before responding. Scared, angry, questioning every decision that led me here. His reply was immediate. All reasonable reactions. But you're still here. That says something. Says I'm trapped. Says you're strong enough to face what scares you instead of running from it. Elena set down her phone and focused on Sophia, who was drawing at the kitchen table elaborate scenes of princesses and dragons, her imagination blissfully untouched by the danger surrounding them. This was worth protecting, worth fighting for, even if it meant allying herself with a man whose world operated on rules she was still learning. The knock at the door came at exactly noon. Elena checked the peephole and saw Vincent, holding bags from Giordano's that smelled like heaven. Lunch delivery, he said when she opened the door. His eyes scanned the apartment quickly, professionally. Boss wanted to make sure you both ate something good. This is too much. You don't know, Mr. Romano, well yet. Vincent's smile was slight but genuine. When he decides to take care of someone, he doesn't do it halfway. He set the bags on the counter, and Elena noticed the careful way he moved, alert, controlled, ready for violence despite the casual appearance. This was a dangerous man playing at being a delivery service. Miss Vasquez, Vincent said, his tone shifting to something more serious. I need you to understand something. The men outside, the security detail, this isn't temporary. As long as you work for Mr. Romano, this is your life now. Protected, watched, never truly alone. I'm starting to realize that. Romano's never done this before. Extended personal protection to someone who isn't family, isn't part of the organization. Vincent's dark eyes were steady. In 15 years, I've never failed. I'd seen him this invested in keeping someone safe. That means something. Means you're important to him in ways that go beyond business. Elena's stomach fluttered. I barely know him. He knows you. Studied you for weeks before approaching you. The wallet thing, returning his property that wasn't the first time he noticed you. He'd been watching you work, seeing how you treated people, testing whether you were real or just good at performing kindness. That's, Elena searched for the right word, invasive. That's thorough. That's how he survives. Vincent moved toward the door. But the point is, you're safe because he's decided you matter. And when Dante Romano decides something matters, he'll burn the whole city down to protect it. After Vincent left, Elena fed Sophia the pasta and garlic bread, watching her daughter's face light up with joy at the unexpected feast. Simple pleasures. That's all she'd ever wanted for Sophia's safety, happiness, the luxury of being a child, without fear. Now she'd traded their quiet struggle for a different kind of uncertainty. Protected, yes, but at what cost? Her phone buzzed again. This time, a call. "Can you video chat?" Dante asked. "I want to see you're okay." Elena hesitated, then opened the video call. Dante's face filled her screen. He was in an office somewhere, late afternoon light slanting through windows behind him. He looked tired, the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying too much weight for too long. "You look worried," Elena said. "I am worried. Marcus Sullivan filed a police report claiming I was behind the warehouse fire. It's bullshit. I was with you all evening, and Vincent has a dozen witnesses placing me across the city when it happened. But the Morettis are playing dirty, trying to tie me up in legal battles while they make their real moves." "What real moves?" Dante's jaw tightened. "They're targeting my businesses. Health inspections suddenly finding violations, building permits being delayed, supply chains disrupted. They're trying to bleed me financially, force me back to the negotiating table on their terms. Can they succeed? Not if I fight back the way I used to." His eyes met hers through the screen. "But that would mean violence, intimidation, all the things I'm trying to move away from. The things you're helping me move away from." Elena heard the unspoken question in his words. "You want to know if it's worth it. If going legitimate is worth being attacked." "I know it's worth it. What I don't know is if I have the strength to stay the course when every instinct I have is screaming at me to revert. To remind the Morettis why they used to fear the Romano name." Behind Elena, Sophia was humming to herself, coloring a dragon purple and gold. So innocent, so pure. Everything Elena had fought to preserve. "My father," Elena said quietly, surprising herself with the words. "He was a good man. Worked construction his whole life. Honest work, fair wages. But he struggled constantly. Could barely keep us fed. He used to say the system was rigged against people like us, people who played by the rules while everyone else cheated." Dante listened, perfectly still. "He died when I was 16. Fell from scaffolding because the safety equipment was faulty, because the contractor had cut corners to save money. The company paid us nothing. Said it was his fault for being careless." Elena's voice hardened. "I learned then that playing by the rules only works if everyone else does too. Otherwise you just die poor and forgotten. So you think I should fight dirty?" "No, I think you should fight smart." Elena glanced at Sophia, making sure she was absorbed in her drawing. "The Morettis are attacking your legitimate businesses because they think that's where you're vulnerable. Prove them wrong. Show them that clean operations are stronger, more resilient, more profitable than their corrupt system. Beat them by being better, not more violent." Dante's expression shifted: surprise, admiration, something deeper Elena couldn't quite name. "You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But if you succeed, you prove that change is possible. That people like my father don't have to die because someone else chose profit over safety." "Elena," Dante started, then stopped. His eyes held something vulnerable, something she'd never expected to see in a man whose reputation was built on fear. "Thank you for believing this is possible when everyone else thinks I've lost my mind. Don't thank me yet. We might both be wrong. If we are, at least we'll be wrong together." The weight of those words settled between them, intimate despite the digital distance. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks and was grateful Sophia couldn't see her face from her angle. "I should let you go," Dante said, though he didn't end the call. "Vincent will bring dinner at 6. And Elena? Tomorrow morning, I'm sending a car. We need to meet with my lawyers about Sullivan's allegations. You'll need to give a statement confirming our timeline from last night. Will I see you?" The question slipped out before Elena could stop it. Dante's smile was slow and genuine. "Yes, you'll see me." After they disconnected, Elena sat at the table across from Sophia, her mind spinning. In less than 48 hours, her entire world had transformed. She'd gone from serving tables to sitting at them, from poverty to protection, from invisibility to being watched by dangerous men. And at the center of it all was Dante Romano, complex, contradictory, simultaneously terrifying and tender. A man who ordered violence with one breath and asked about her daughter's favorite foods with the next. She should have been repulsed, should have recognized the red flags and run as far as possible. Instead, she found herself thinking about the way he'd looked at her on that video call, like she was solving puzzles he'd given up trying to crack, like she mattered in ways that transcended employment or protection, like she was becoming essential. The police station at 11th and State was everything Elena had imagined. And worse, fluorescent lights, the smell of bad coffee and bureaucracy, exhausted officers processing an endless parade of Chicago's criminal element. Dante met her in the lobby at 9 a.m. sharp, flanked by 2 lawyers whose suits probably cost more than Elena's annual salary. He looked every inch the legitimate businessman, tailored navy suit, conservative tie, polished shoes that clicked against the linoleum with authority. But when his eyes found Elena across the crowded space, they softened in a way that made her heart skip. "Thank you for coming," he said, taking her hand in a gesture that was both professional and oddly intimate. "This shouldn't take long. They just need to confirm our whereabouts during the fire." The interview room was small and claustrophobic. Detective Sarah Monroe was a woman in the Destigath, her late 40s with sharp eyes, and an expression that suggested she'd seen every lie humanity could concoct. "Miss Vasquez," she began, reviewing a file. "You work for Mr. Romano?" "Yes, as of 2 days ago." "Doing what exactly?" "Business consulting. I observe meetings, assess interactions, provide insight." Detective Monroe's eyebrow rose. "That's a rather vague job description." "It's a rather unique position," Elena replied calmly. "Mr. Romano values an outside perspective. I provide that." "And where were you both on Tuesday night between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., when Marcus Sullivan's warehouse burned?" "We had dinner at the Pinnacle Club with Mr. Castellano, Mr. Chen, and Mr. Sullivan himself. The dinner ended around 10:30. Mr. Romano drove me home and walked me to my apartment door around 11:15. Then he left." "Can anyone verify that?" "Mrs. Chen, my neighbor. She saw him leave. And I believe Mr. Romano's security team can provide additional timeline confirmation." Detective Monroe turned to Dante. "Mr. Romano, where did you go after leaving Miss Vasquez's apartment?" "Home. Directly to my penthouse in the Gold Coast. Vincent, my driver, can confirm. Building security cameras will show my arrival at 11:47 p.m. I didn't leave again until 7 a.m. the next morning. And yet, Marcus Sullivan's warehouse, located in Bridgeport, conveniently close to Miss Vasquez's neighborhood, burns to the ground. Suspicious timing." Dante's expression remained perfectly neutral. "Suspicious for whom, detective? I was nowhere near Bridgeport. I had no motive to target Sullivan's warehouse. We're potential business partners on a major development project. Why would I sabotage that relationship? Maybe because Sullivan refused your terms. Maybe because he's connected to the Moretti family, and you're sending a message. The only message I'm sending is that Romano Enterprises operates legally and ethically. If someone chose to burn down Sullivan's warehouse, I suggest you look for enemies he's actually made and given his business practices. I imagine that's a long list." The interview continued for another 20 minutes, but Elena could see Detective Monroe had nothing substantial. The timeline was airtight, the motive was thin, and Dante's lawyers were already preparing to file harassment complaints if the questioning continued. Outside the station, Dante turned to Elena, his hand finding her elbow in a gesture that was becoming familiar. "I'm sorry you had to go through that." "It's fine. I told the truth." "Which is exactly why you're valuable." Dante guided her toward his car, where Vincent waited. "Most people in my world wouldn't think twice about lying to the police. But you answered honestly, calmly, and made me look legitimate in the process. You are legitimate." "I'm trying to be. There's a difference." Dante opened the car door for her. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before answering." Elena slid into the back seat, Dante following. Vincent pulled into traffic, and suddenly they were alone in their mobile fortress, the tinted windows cutting them off from the world outside. "Tonight, I have another meeting," Dante said. "But this one's different, more dangerous. The Moretti family wants to sit down, discuss terms, find a resolution to our current conflict. It's a trap, I know that going in. But I need to attend or they'll see it as weakness. You want me there. I want you safe at home. But I need you there." His dark eyes held hers. These people, the Morettis, they're the real power in Chicago's underworld. Not businessmen playing at crime, but actual criminals with decades of blood on their hands. If I'm going to negotiate with them, I need someone watching my back who isn't compromised by fear or loyalty to the old ways. I don't know anything about the Mafia. You know people. You know liars. That's all I need. Dante's hand covered hers on the seat between them. "But Elena, if you come tonight, you step fully into my world. No more pretending this is just a consulting job. no more comfortable distance. You'll see things, hear things, be exposed to violence and darkness. I can't protect you from completely. Elena thought about Sophia, safe at Mrs. Chen's apartment under the watchful eye of Dante's security team. Thought about the bills that were finally paid, the medicine her daughter could now afford, the future that had seemed impossible just days ago. But more than that, she thought about Dante, this complicated man trying to change, trying to build something better despite a world determined to drag him back into darkness. He needed an ally, someone not corrupted by his world but strong enough to navigate it beside him. "What time?" she asked. Dante's expression shifted relief, gratitude, something that looked dangerously close to affection. 7 p.m. And Elena? Yes? After tonight, there's no going back. You understand that? Elena understood. She was choosing him, choosing this dangerous path, choosing to believe that redemption was possible even for men like Dante Romano. I understand. The meeting was in a warehouse in Pilsen, neutral territory supposedly, though Elena noticed the way Dante's men positioned themselves strategically before allowing him to enter. Vincent and 4 others, all armed, all alert, all ready for the trap they knew was coming. Inside, the space was cavernous and cold. Metal shipping containers stacked like building blocks, harsh industrial lighting, and in the center, a makeshift conference area, a table, chairs, and the 5 men who controlled Chicago's criminal underworld. Don Carlo Moretti sat at the head of the table like a king holding court. He was 72 years old but vital, with steel-gray hair and eyes like chips of ice. His sons flanked him, Antonio on the right, Michael on the left, both in their 40s, both radiating barely contained violence. Marcus Sullivan was there too, his face smug with satisfaction, and another man Elena didn't recognize, younger, with tattoos crawling up his neck, and a smile that promised pain. Romano. Don Moretti's voice carried the weight of decades. You brought a date to a business meeting. How? Unconventional. Elena Vasquez, Dante said, his hand protective on her back. My consultant. She observes, she doesn't participate. Pretty thing. Antonio Moretti's eyes crawled over Elena like insects. You always did have expensive tastes, Romano. Careful. Dante's voice dropped to something lethal. She's under my protection. Everything's under your protection these days, Don Moretti interjected. Former associates, ex-cons you've hired, whole neighborhoods you've decided to renovate. You're building quite the empire of rehabilitation. I'm building legitimate businesses. You're destroying our infrastructure. Marcus Sullivan leaned forward, his face flushed. Every operation you shut down, every deal you refuse to make, every time you choose legal over effective, you cost us millions. You cost the families their traditional revenue streams. Then adapt, Dante said simply. The world is changing. Law enforcement is getting smarter. Federal investigations are closing in on criminal enterprises across the country. The families that survive will be the ones who transition to legitimate operations. Or, Michael Moretti smiled, and it was the most frightening thing Elena had ever seen. We remove the weak link that's threatening our survival. The warehouse suddenly felt smaller. Elena noticed Dante's men tensing, hands moving subtly toward concealed weapons. Vincent's expression was carved from stone, his eyes tracking every movement. Is that a threat? Dante asked calmly. It's a business proposition. Don Moretti stood, moving around the table with surprising grace for a man his age. You have 2 choices, Romano. Revert to the old ways, share territories, split profits, operate as we've always operated, or, we remove you from the equation. Your businesses get absorbed by people who understand how Chicago really works. Your assets get divided among the families. And you, Don Moretti's smile was cold. You get a respectful funeral and a nice headstone. Elena felt Dante's hand tighten on her back. She could sense the violence simmering beneath his calm exterior, the darkness he was fighting so hard to transcend. There's a third option, Elena heard herself say. Every eye in the warehouse turned to her. Dante's grip on her back turned sharp, warning, but she continued anyway. You're right that the world is changing, she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. Federal oversight is increasing. Public scrutiny is intensifying. But you're wrong about what that means. It doesn't mean the families are dying, it means they need to evolve. Don Moretti studied her with interest. Go on. Romano Enterprises has transitioned to legitimate operations and remained profitable. More profitable, actually, than when it operated in the gray areas. That proves the model works. Elena stood, feeling Dante's presence solid beside her. What if instead of fighting this transition, the families embraced it? Dante shows you how. You convert your operations legally, protect yourselves from federal prosecution, and actually increase your wealth and influence in the process. You're suggesting we all go legit? Antonio laughed. And what? Hold hands and sing about friendship? I'm suggesting you stop treating Dante as the enemy and start seeing him as your best chance at survival. Elena's voice grew stronger. In 5 years, the families who remain criminal will be in prison. The families who adapted will be running billion-dollar corporations. Which do you want to be? The silence was absolute. Marcus Sullivan looked apoplectic. The Moretti sons exchanged glances, and Don Moretti, the most dangerous man in Chicago, smiled. Fascinating, he murmured. Romano, where did you find this one? She found me, Dante replied, his voice carrying undisguised pride. Don Moretti returned to his seat, steepling his fingers. You make an interesting argument, Miss Vasquez, but there's a problem with your scenario. Trust. Why should we trust Romano to guide this transition? Why should we believe he won't use his legitimate status to destroy us? Because he has more to lose than you do. Elena felt Dante stiffen beside her, but she continued. He has businesses, reputation, a future he's building. If he betrayed you, he'd lose all of that. You have leveraged the threat of exposing his past operations, destroying his legitimacy. It's mutually assured destruction, which means it's mutually assured cooperation. Michael Moretti leaned back, studying Elena with new interest. She's smart, Romano. Dangerous combination with that face. The question is, Don Moretti said slowly, is she right? Can we actually transition without losing our power, our influence? Look at the numbers, Dante said, finally speaking. Romano Enterprises' quarterly earnings are public record since we went fully transparent. Revenue is up 37%. Profit margins increased. Legal challenges decreased to almost zero. And I sleep at night knowing federal investigators can audit every transaction without finding anything criminal. You also have enemies multiplying, Marcus Sullivan interjected. People see your success and want to tear it down. And I handle them legally. Lawsuits, not bodies. Lawyers, not enforcers. It's cleaner, more sustainable, and ultimately more effective. Dante's eyes swept the room. I'm offering you a map to the future. You can follow it or stay behind. But understand, I'm not going back. Not for threats, not for money, not for anything. Don Moretti stood, signaling the meeting's end. I'll think about your proposal, Romano. Discuss it with the other families. We'll reconvene in 1 week. If your numbers are accurate, if this transition is truly viable, perhaps we can find common ground. And if you decide against it, Dante asked, then we'll have a different conversation, one that ends very differently. Don Moretti's expression was unreadable. But Miss Vasquez has given me something to consider. Maybe the old ways are dying. Maybe adaptation is survival. As they left the warehouse, Vincent and the security team forming a protective circle, Elena felt her legs shaking with delayed adrenaline. She'd just addressed the heads of Chicago's crime families, had argued for their transformation, their redemption, had possibly signed her own death warrant. In the car, Dante pulled her close, his arm around her shoulders, his face buried in her hair. That was the bravest, most foolish, most incredible thing I've ever witnessed, he murmured. You just negotiated with the Morettis. No one does that, especially not someone who's been in this world for less than a week. Did I help? Or make it worse? You gave them a framework for change, whether they accept it or not. Dante pulled back, his hands cupping her face. Elena, you showed them that transformation is possible, that someone from outside this world can understand it, navigate it, and still maintain their integrity. I was terrified. You should have been. Those men have killed for less than the disrespect you showed Marcus Sullivan. But you spoke truth to power, and that, his thumb brushed across her cheek, that changes things. Elena realized they were still in the car, Vincent discreetly driving in circles to give them privacy, the city lights streaming past the tinted windows like stars. Dante, she whispered. I know. His forehead rested against hers. I know this is complicated. I know I've pulled you into darkness. I know you should run as far from me as possible. I'm not running. You should be. But I'm not. Elena's hands came up to cover his where they still cradled her. Face, I'm choosing to stay. To see where this goes. To believe that people can change, that systems can transform, that maybe... He kissed her. It was soft, questioning. giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Elena didn't pull away. She leaned in, her hands sliding into his hair, her heart hammering against her ribs, as Dante Romano, dangerous, complicated, impossible, kissed her, like she was the answer to a question he'd spent his whole life asking. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante's expression was torn between desire and restraint. "This complicates everything," he said. "I know. You work for me. You're under my protection. There's a power imbalance. I'm aware of all of that." Elena straightened, putting necessary distance between them, even as her body screamed to close the gap. "But I'm also choosing this. Choosing you. Not because I need protection or money or security, but because I see who you're trying to become, and I want to help you get there." Dante's laugh was shaky, almost disbelieving. "You're remarkable. Do you know that?" "Absolutely remarkable." Vincent's voice came through the intercom, carefully neutral. "Boss, we're approaching Miss Vasquez's building. Want me to keep circling?" "No," Dante said, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. "Take us home." The next week was a study in contrasts. Days filled with meetings, lawyers, accountants, business partners, all working to solidify Dante's transition to complete legitimacy. Evenings filled with dinners, conversations, stolen moments where Elena and Dante navigated the complicated space between employer and employee, protector and protected, and something neither was quite ready to name. Sophia met Dante on Thursday. He'd come to pick up Elena for a meeting, and ended up staying for dinner in their tiny apartment takeout from a Thai place. Sophia loved paper plates on their card table, crayons scattered across every surface. Elena watched, her heart in her throat, as Dante sat cross-legged on the floor with her daughter, helping her color a dragon that was supposed to be protecting a castle. "No, Mr. Romano," Sophia corrected seriously. "Dragons don't breathe blue fire. Everyone knows it's orange or red." "My apologies." Dante switched crayons with complete solemnity. "I'm not very experienced with dragons." "That's okay. Mommy says you're very good at business, so you can't be good at everything. Your mother is very wise." Sophia studied him with the brutal honesty of childhood. "Are you Mommy's boyfriend?" Elena choked on her tea. Dante's expression flickered surprise, amusement, something deeper. "We're friends," he said carefully. "Very good friends. Mrs. Chen says you're going to marry Mommy and make us rich." "Sophia," Elena's face burned. "Mrs. Chen should mind her own business. But I like Mr. Romano. He can marry you if he wants." Sophia returned to her coloring. The matter settled in her mind. After she was tucked into bed, Dante and Elena stood on her tiny balcony, barely big enough for two people watching Chicago glitter in the distance. "I'm sorry about that," Elena said. "She's 7 and has no filter. Don't apologize. She's honest. I appreciate honesty." Dante turned to face her, the city lights reflecting in his dark eyes. "Elena, I need to tell you something. Tomorrow, the families meet to discuss my proposal. If they reject it, if they choose war instead of adaptation, things will get dangerous. Very dangerous. More dangerous than they already are? Exponentially. Right now, it's business conflicts. Tomorrow, it could become actual war bodies, bloodshed, the kind of violence I've spent a year trying to escape." His jaw tightened. "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If things go wrong tomorrow, if the families reject my offer and choose violence, Vincent will come for you. You and Sophia will be taken somewhere safe, a property I own in Colorado, completely off-grid, fully secured. You'll stay there until it's over. And you? I'll do what I've always done. Fight. Protect what's mine. Win at any cost." Elena's hand found his, their fingers intertwining naturally. "What if I don't want to run? What if I want to stay and help?" "Then I'd say you're being brave and foolish in equal measure." Dante pulled her closer, his arms encircling her waist. "But I'd also say that having you beside me, believing in me, makes me stronger than I've ever been. Then let me stay." "Elena, I'm not running, Dante. Not from you. Not from this world. Not from whatever happens tomorrow." She looked up at him, this dangerous man who'd somehow become essential. "You asked me to trust you. Now I'm asking you to trust me." Dante's expression was torn, wanting to protect her, and wanting to accept what she offered in equal measure. Finally, he nodded. "If you stay close to me, always within arm's reach. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no hesitation. Agreed?" "Agreed." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, pouring everything he couldn't say into the connection of lips and breath and shared heartbeat. When they finally broke apart, both knew tomorrow would change everything. Either Dante's vision of transformation would take root, or Chicago's underworld would drown them both in blood. The meeting was scheduled for 8 p.m. at a neutral location, an upscale restaurant Romano Enterprises had recently acquired, newly renovated, symbolically representing the transformation Dante advocated. Elena dressed carefully in another gown Lucia had provided, this one burgundy, elegant but not flashy, projecting confidence without arrogance. Dante picked her up personally, looking devastating in a charcoal suit, his expression calm but his eyes betraying the tension beneath. "No matter what happens tonight," he said as they drove toward the restaurant, "I want you to know you've changed my life, given me a reason to believe transformation is possible. Don't talk like you're saying goodbye." "I'm not. I'm saying thank you." The restaurant's private dining room held 15 people, representatives from all 5 families, their lawyers, their advisors, and the weight of decades of criminal tradition. Don Moretti sat at the head of the table, his sons on either side, his expression unreadable. Marcus Sullivan was noticeably absent. Elena wondered if that meant he'd been pushed out, or if he was planning something worse from the shadows. Dante stood at the front of the room, Elena beside him, and presented his case. Financial reports showing Romano Enterprises' success, legal frameworks for transitioning criminal operations to legitimate businesses, tax structures, corporate governance models, protection strategies against federal investigation. It was brilliant, comprehensive, offering a roadmap for the families to maintain their power and influence while escaping the constant threat of imprisonment or death. For 2 hours they debated, challenged, questioned every assumption and proposal. And through it all, Elena watched, reading the room, seeing the gradual shift from hostility to grudging interest to genuine consideration. Finally, Don Moretti stood. The room fell silent. "Romano, you've made your case. Miss Vasquez, you've argued persuasively for transformation. But here's my concern: this only works if we all commit. If even one family rejects this path, they become a threat to everyone who embraces it. So I propose something radical." He gestured to the room. "We all vote, all 5 families. If the vote is unanimous, we adopt Romano's framework. All of us transition together, support each other through the process, and emerge as legitimate business empires. But if even one family votes no, then we acknowledge that change is impossible, and we return to the old ways. All of us, including Romano." The weight of that ultimatum settled over the room like a physical presence. Dante would have to choose his vision of transformation with everyone on board, or survival by reverting to violence. "I accept those terms," Dante said, without hesitation. One by one, the families voted. The Castellanos, yes, surprising everyone. The Chens, yes. Robert's nervous energy transformed into hopeful determination. The Russos, yes, after whispered consultation with their lawyers. The Sullivans, Marcus's cousin, stood as proxy, and Elena held her breath. "Yes," he said finally. "Marcus is out. Family voted him off. We're in." That left only the Morettis. Don Carlo stood, his sons flanking him, the 3 generations of Chicago's most powerful crime family making a decision that would echo through decades. "We've survived in this city for 70 years, Don Moretti said slowly. "My father built this family through blood and fear. My sons are prepared to maintain it the same way. But," he paused, his ice blue eyes finding Elena's face, then Dante's. "My granddaughter is 10 years old. And when I look at her, I don't want her to grow up afraid. I don't want her to visit her father in prison. I don't want her to attend funerals of cousins and uncles who died in wars that serve no purpose except feeding the cycle." He turned to his sons. "Antonio, Michael, what do you say?" The brothers exchanged long looks. Antonio spoke first. "I say Dad's right. The feds are closing in. The old ways are dying. If Romano can show us how to survive," he nodded, "I vote yes." Michael was silent longer, his expression showing the war between tradition and pragmatism. Finally, he smiled, genuine this time, not threatening. "Romano, you better be right about this. Because if we fail, if this experiment crashes," he laughed. "Ah, hell. We'd probably end up in prison anyway under the old system. At least this way we try something new." "Yes." Don Moretti extended his hand to Dante. "Unanimous. We're in. All of us. Together." The room erupted, not in celebration exactly, but in the kind of relieved tension that comes from making an impossible decision and committing completely. Dante shook hands with each family representative, his expression carefully controlled, but Elena could see the emotion beneath. He'd done it. Convinced 5 criminal organizations to transform themselves completely, offered them redemption, and had them accept it. As the meeting broke up, Don Moretti pulled Dante and Elena aside. "This won't be easy," he warned. "The transition will take years. There will be setbacks, challenges, people who resist change. But Romano, you've given us something precious, hope that we can be more than what we've always been." He turned to Elena. "And you, Miss Vasquez, you spoke truth when everyone else was lying. You believed transformation was possible when we'd given up. That matters." His weathered hand patted her shoulder gently. "Take care of him. He'll need you in the months ahead." "I will," Elena promised. Outside, in the car with Vincent, driving them back toward Elena's apartment, Dante pulled her close and just held her. His body shook slightly, adrenaline, relief, emotion too complex to name. "We did it," he whispered into her hair. "We actually did it. You did it. I just helped." "No." He pulled back, his hands cupping her face with infinite gentleness. "You made it possible, gave me the courage to offer something I wasn't sure would work, stood beside me when it would have been smarter to run. Where else would I be? Safe, far away from me." Dante's smile was bittersweet. "But I'm too selfish to let you go now, too addicted to your faith in me." Elena kissed him soft, sure, full of promise. "Then I guess you're stuck with me. There are worse fates." As they pulled up to her building, Elena saw Mrs. Chen standing on the stoop, Sophia beside her in pajamas despite the late hour. The little girl broke free the moment she saw her mother, running with arms outstretched. "Mommy, Mrs. Chen said you were at an important meeting. Did it go good?" Elena scooped her up, breathing in her strawberry shampoo scent, feeling the solid reality of her daughter's weight. "It went very good, baby. Very good." Dante stood beside them, and Sophia reached out to pat his hand. "Did you help my mommy at the meeting?" "Actually," Dante said seriously, "your mommy helped me. She's very brave." "I know. She's the best mommy in the whole world. I believe that." Later, after Sophia was tucked in and sleeping peacefully, Elena stood on her tiny balcony with Dante, watching the city that had almost destroyed them both but had instead become the foundation for transformation. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, the real work begins. Transitioning 5 criminal organizations to legitimate operations. 18 months minimum, probably longer. It'll be complicated, frustrating, occasionally terrifying." Dante's arm wrapped around her shoulders. "But I won't face it alone." "No," Elena agreed, leaning into his warmth. "You won't, Elena." Dante's voice carried a weight that made her look up at him. "I know this is fast. I know we barely know each other in the traditional sense. But I need you to understand something." "What?" "You're not just working for me anymore. You're part of my life. Essential to it. And he paused, seeming to search for words. "I'm falling in love with you. Probably already have fallen. And I needed you to know that before we go any further." Elena's heart thundered in her chest. She could have been scared, should have been cautious. This was a man whose world operated on rules she was still learning, whose past was built on violence and fear. But when she looked at Dante Romano, she saw something beautiful emerging from darkness, saw redemption taking physical form, saw a future that was complicated and uncertain but filled with the kind of love that transformed everything it touched. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. "Maybe already have." Dante's smile was brilliant, unguarded, showing the man he was becoming without the armor of violence and fear. "Then let's build something extraordinary," he said. "Together. Always together." As they kissed under the Chicago night sky, neither noticed Mrs. Chen watching from her window, a satisfied smile on her weathered face. She'd told Sophia that Mr. Romano would marry her mother and make them rich. But what Mrs. Chen had really seen was something richer than money. 2 broken people finding wholeness in each other, building a future from the ruins of their pasts, proving that transformation wasn't just possible. It was beautiful. Romano Enterprises went fully public in a stunning IPO that made headlines across the business world. The 5 families' legitimate operations merged into a corporate coalition that revitalized Chicago's South Side, created thousands of jobs, and became a model for urban renewal nationwide. Marcus Sullivan went to prison for insurance fraud and Money laundering brought down not by violence but by meticulous legal investigation that Dante funded but never touched directly. Elena became chief operating officer of Romano Enterprises. Her instinct for reading people translated into brilliant corporate strategy. She moved into a brownstone in Lincoln Park with Sophia, who was thriving with her new asthma medication, and had started taking art classes at a school Dante's foundation funded. And Dante Romano transformed from Chicago's most feared criminal into one of its most respected businessmen. He still had enemies, still faced challenges, still carried scars from his past. But every morning he woke up beside Elena, drove Sophia to school. She called him Dante now, though sometimes slipped and said, "Dad," which made his eyes suspiciously bright, and went to an office where his work built rather than destroyed. On a perfect autumn evening, exactly 2 years after Elena had refused his $100 tip, Dante took her back to Romano's Bistro, the restaurant where everything had started. The private dining room was decorated simply candles, roses, the city skyline glittering beyond the windows. Sophia was there too, wearing a new dress and barely containing her excitement. "Elena Vasquez," Dante said, taking her hand as soft music played. "2 years ago, you refused my money because you couldn't be bought. You taught me that integrity was worth more than wealth, that transformation was possible, that even men like me could find redemption." He knelt, pulling out a ring that caught the candlelight like captured fire. "You've given me everything: purpose, hope, love, a family I never thought I'd deserve. Will you marry me? Build a life with me? Let me spend every day proving I'm worthy of your faith?" Elena's eyes filled with tears, joy, gratitude, overwhelming love for this complicated man who'd fought so hard to become someone his daughter could admire. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it," Sophia cheered, running forward to hug them both, and in that perfect moment, everything made sense. The struggle, the fear, the leap of faith that had brought them here. They'd built something extraordinary not despite their differences, but because of them, not by ignoring darkness, but by choosing light together. And as Dante slipped the ring onto Elena's finger, sealing promises made in whispered conversations and stolen moments, Chicago's skyline glittered with possibility. The single mother who'd rejected a tip and the Mafia boss who'd learned to change. Together, they'd proven that love wasn't just powerful, it was transformative.